welcome into the show tonight. We got a good one. We're gonna go over some of the recent coaching hires that just went down in the league. We had a couple surprise firings too since the last time we recorded an episode, and then we're starting our prospect rookie previews with the 2026 draft. And I think we got three of probably the best ones that we're gonna go over tonight. I think these are three of my favorites that I think are. I don't want to call anybody a lock, but like these are really good
Yeah.
prospects that we're gonna get into. But before
And
we
I
get into
was
all that, Holler, what's up, man?
what's up? Yeah, I was just looking earlier at we started a little rookie mock draft. Only two
Hmm.
rounds, but I was looking at it and I was like, dang, I'm gonna need to really look into some of these prospects a bit more because just what I know from them right now, not too enticing, right? And
Well,
I'm sure some will be fine, but it was more looking like at the back end of the first. And so there was like, okay, I don't know enough about these guys right this today, and two, um we don't have the same like depth we have had in the other years, I feel. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean that any like not none of those guys are going to be any good is not what I mean. But it's just there's not as many like this guy. I feel like he can kind of go anywhere, will still be good.
yeah. Like last year, I think a good way to look at it is like at the top of the second round, you could draft a guy like a Cam Scatabo went kind of in that range. I know Jackson Dart went at the late one, kind of early two range. There were some guys who didn't work out, but there was like Trey Harris was there, and there was like Matthew
Yeah,
Golden was kind of in that range. There was guys that was like, yeah, they might work out, they might not, but like they had the draft capital, they had the draft pedigree, they had the kind of the prospect, profiles. Looking at it now, and obviously it's early, we're looking at like Denzel Boston went at 11, Jonah Coleman
exactly.
went at 12, like Jadarian Price went at 10, and some of these guys where it's like, I think they're fine, but like they're fine, right? They're not like um it's not like exciting. The fall off happens a lot earlier this
Yes.
draft than I think it has in the last like year or two, which is a little bit concerning. And some of that is like some of these guys are going back to school. I saw there's like way less underclassmen declare for the draft this year than in years previous, and I think it's because of NIL money. Some of these guys like they're making more than they would, if they came out and got drafted in the third round or something. Like they make way more money going back to school, which makes sense, right? But so I think some of these guys like we're seeing less and less early declares, which is fine, but it
Yeah.
does hurt like this draft class. Um,
Yeah, I think we were spoiled the last maybe 2, 3
we
years,
were,
to be
we
honest.
were,
Like, I think this is more of the norm maybe, and now because of NIL, right? The
yeah,
top end players, unless they know they're a first round lock or,
yeah,
second round, like they're going to go back to school because they're going to easily
and they
get more
should,
money, like you said,
yeah,
right? And I'm right on board there. Yeah, they should. So we could have had a couple more quarterbacks, with Dante Moore and a couple other guys, but you know, I, I don't think any of the back end guys really are going to be like nothing, right? I still think it's a possibility that anybody back there could be great. We just, need to let the process happen.
yeah, and like some of the bummers too is there were guys like Drew Aller and like Nick
Yeah.
Singleton and Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeyer who like were supposed to be kind of like the next like hotness that really struggled this last year. And some of it was some of those guys got injured. Some of them just kind of sucked. And I don't really know what happened, but like I guess the silver lining there is that like, hey, it saved you from wasting a pick if they had come out last year and then they sucked in the NFL. So that's how I'm choosing to look at it.
Yeah.
We'll see. It does kind of hurt this year's rookies, but that's okay. We'll get
Yeah.
into it. We got
One,
some good ones we're gonna talk to tonight. But yeah.
yeah, we'll get into them like even these back end guys, and there'll be plenty of time to hype them up a
There's
little bit, and then they end up on a great landing spot with opportunity and whatever, right? So,
Yeah,
I'm just highlighting like
guys will show
today.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, like today we're not as spoiled as we have been the last couple of years. There's not clear cut guys of like, okay, I still feel good with my 201, 202. Like I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't really want anybody at this point, right? And so, but those guys will get hyped up.
Yeah, and I think the way I kinda described it in the Discord the other day was that, like, some of the guys in, like, the late first, early second, instead of being, like, your running back 2s and, like, wide receiver 3s, they're probably gonna be more like they're gonna help you in the flex. They're gonna help you as, like, bye week fill-ins, which are still useful, still guys you need. It's just not as, like, oh, this guy's going to be, a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL all of a sudden, like in your dynasty rankings. It's probably more like he's probably going to be a wide receiver like 35 or like wide receiver 40. And that's fine too. Like you need those guys.
Yep.
We'll see. But first, we had a lot of coaching hires. We will start with John Harbaugh. He got hired first. He's going to be the new head coach for the Giants. Now, the interesting thing about Harbaugh is he's not really an offensive or defensive coach. Like before he was a head coach at Baltimore, he was a special teams coordinator. And so he's kind of more just like he just like builds a program. So this is an interesting one to see who the offensive coordinator is going to be. But I do think it gives some structure, and that's nice because there's a lot of good fantasy assets in New York, like the Jackson Dart, Scatabo, Malik Neighbors. Theo Johnson's kind of whatever, but like he still was like useful. What are your thoughts there, Holler, on Harbaugh? Are you excited or just kind of like, I don't know? What are your thoughts?
I'm excited because, like you said, there are really like some pretty good fantasy assets, and like to me, it's fun when the Giants are fun, right? I just think that's one of the teams that like makes football more fun, and like fantasy, like they have quite a few good young pieces, right? I even think their defenses has some good pieces, right? And so, I think it's interesting that Harbaugh picked New York, right? I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get to playoffs and get to a possibility of a Super Bowl. But yes, I think in terms of offensive coordinator is going to be super key, right? The names floating out there like Todd Monken and Greg Roman. It's like I really hope he doesn't go either of those routes, right? Yeah. But unfortunately, these veteran coaches really just go with the guys they know, and like unfortunately, they're just like mediocre, right? So we will see. I'm assuming it will be one of those guys, Todd Monken or Greg Roman, right? And so we will see. But I just think we'll feel better about putting a Giant in our lineup now that John Harbaugh is there than before.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's just like a nice like structure. It's not like super dysfunctional, right? Like
exactly.
His team's going to be prepared. His team's going to be like ready to go. They're going to be focused. Other than like God knows what was going on with Brian Daboll and some of those guys, right? But
although I do think there's quite a bit of little bit of dysfunction still like in the higher ups, right? But I'm hoping this could all like settle down, now that they have a more stabilized, head coach, but you never know.
There's definitely some dysfunction given that John Harbaugh was like holding out to sign the contract until they put it in his contract that he reported to the owner and not Joe Schoen, the GM, which honestly is probably a good call on his part. But like, part of me feels like too, Joe Schoen might be living on borrowed time and he might be gone next year because it sounds like Harbaugh already doesn't want to deal with him.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm guessing they spent all that money on Harbaugh and they're like okay, whatever, we'll get a new GM.
We'll find a new
So. Another head coaching hire, Kevin Stefanski, got let go from the Browns. He comes over to the Atlanta Falcons. He brings along with him Tommy Rees, who was his offensive coordinator in Cleveland. So they kind of got the band back together. And when you have an opportunity from a failed offense to bring your guys with you, you have to take it, right? I will say though, so Stefanski has a very zone run heavy offense, a lot of play action passes, features the tight end in the receiving games. This is exciting for Bijan, I think. I think this is huge news. Stefanski has one of the things that Browns do too. They ran a ton of plays under Kevin Stefanski, even with the bad offense, right? They ran an absurd number of plays, and getting Bijan in that offense. I know Algier is a free agent. He's probably gonna get out of there. The one question is quarterback, right? Penix tore his ACL in November. So, is he going to be ready to go at the start of the season? I don't know. Kirk Cousins, I think, has familiarity with the Stefanski offense from his time in Minnesota. So that might be nice. A little Kirk Cousins bounce back if he starts to start the season. I don't know. Howard, what do you thought? I was kind of excited about this hire, but what were your thoughts?
Same here. I think, I understand the offense wasn't great in Cleveland, but we know they did not have a quarterback, right? And so I think Stefanski was pretty good with that offense in Minnesota. I use pretty as the main, the main word there. But I think the biggest thing will be who is the quarterback, right? I do think Bijan is locked for, top 1 or 2, right? Easily now. Like they're
Same.
going to lean on him quite a bit. It'll, the only possible hiccup would be if Algier comes back, right? Like
Sure.
he's kind of always been kind of a thorn in our side, but we know Stefanski's going to use multiple running backs, and then it will really depend if Pitts comes back or what, right? So who their tight end will be. So really, like for me, I'm stoked for Bijan, but still have a lot of questions with that offense. And yes, I think it's 6 on his ACL possibly.
Dude,
It's a lot.
Penix has torn that knee up.
Yeah.
I think he tore at ACL at Indiana a couple times. And then this is his other knee. So I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's a different knee that he blew up this time. So he's gonna be like Darth Vader out there, dude, just like half machine. I do think it's interesting though. Jokes aside, with Stefanski coming over from the Browns, David Njoku, he's a free agent too. I wonder if he signs in Atlanta because Kyle Pitts is a free agent. He's probably going to be gone. It'll be interesting to see if he chooses to bring Njoku with him or if he decides to maybe re-sign Kyle Pitts. I do think like whoever it is going to be a fantasy relevant piece in that offense. And kind of excited to see who that is. So that'll be one spot to watch in free agency, right? Is to see what tight ends come in there.
And I don't real reason why we didn't leave Drake London out. I still think he's going to be wide receiver 1.
Oh yeah,
still really good.
Great.
But I think the main question marks for me is like who's quarterback, and then who's going to like the only question mark is like who fills that tight end because they like you said they will be fantasy relevant.
Yep. Another head coaching hire not on the graphic, but Jeff Hafley comes over from the Green Bay Packers. He was the Packers defensive coordinator going to Miami. He's another one too that's like, okay, a defensive head coach scares me a little bit for the offensive players, just because sometimes when defensive guys go get a head coaching job and they're successful, they get really conservative on offense, and which is not ideal for fantasy. I also wonder what's their plan at quarterback, right? Like, part of me feels like just kind of connecting the dots. The Dolphins hire John Eric Sullivan from the Green Bay Packers. They hire Jeff Hafley from the Green Bay Packers. There's a free agent quarterback, Malik Willis, who used to play for the Green Bay Packers. Is that the quarterback of the future? Sounds like they're basically done with Tua. I mean, they benched him last year. The guys who drafted him are gone. Is Malik Willis going to be the quarterback there? And then who's the offensive coordinator, right? Like that's the biggest thing to me. Who's going to be calling the plays? Because like if it's some random dude, it's like I mean, rip Achane and Jalen Waddle. But am I over concerned, or is that like I don't know?
No, I just was surprised on the ranking of your concerns. My concern is the quarterback, right? But I still have a big concern because exactly what you said. We don't know too much of Hafley, right? Is like. He was a mediocre offensive coordinator. Yes, I'm sure the Packers have had some good defenses, but like, he's been whatever, right? And then I'm sure he's been great, right? But I personally think these types of, move from a coordinator to a head coach is just sometimes too much of a jump, right? And so it really will depend with who they pick at offensive coordinator. But I'm with you. I don't really want anything to do with this offense, right? Unfortunately, because I love Devon Achane is like, and so to me, that's a huge bummer. And, I think he will still be fine, but he doesn't have the top 5 upside that he did with McDaniel there.
Yeah, like I think just kind of looking at it, so like Achane was in that top tier of running backs for me, like with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm still holding him there until I see who the offensive coordinator is, but I feel like I might have to bump him down to a step below. And like not like, totally writing him off, right? It's just that offense was tailor-made for him to be used as a receiver. They had a good run scheme. Like it was great. I'm a little concerned. And then same with like Waddle. And then it's just like, who else is there? Right? There's not a lot of talent to work with. Offensive line's pretty bad. They got to figure out the quarterback. This could be one. It could be a work in progress, right? And so we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think he will be obviously usable, Devon Achane, and maybe Waddle, but he's not going to be a league winner, right? So I'm looking into the future. Maybe next year he might be a guy that you look to like tier up, right? You do a Achane and a plus to go get somebody else or whatever. Like those are the type of pieces that that offense will get better. He's a good player, but I think next year might be a lost year in terms of fantasy.
I think so too. The other head coaching hire, we got Robert Saleh. Got hired for the Tennessee Titans. Um, Another defensive guy. I think he was a good coach. Frankly, I think they couldn't get the quarterback situation right and for the Jets, and the Jets were so dysfunctional. I think Saleh will do a really good job there. And the rumors are he's going to bring in Brian Daboll for offensive coordinator if Daboll doesn't get the Bills job, which I think would be great for Cam Ward. I kind of like the structure that Robert Saleh has, and I think he's going to bring like a stability to the Titans franchise. They just need to like I'm most curious on him being a defensive guy. Like, can he admit like, hey, the offense has problems. We need to fix it. Let's need to get Cam Ward some weapons, and because they're in a spot where they pick fourth or fifth in this draft class, and there's two wide receivers. I think they should take one of them, right? And I'm curious to see what happens there. But what are your thoughts on Saleh?
Yeah, I think this is a good hire, right? He's not a big splashy, name, right? A lot of people think, oh, he failed once, but I think it was a lot more to the story than all his fault with the Jets. So I'm with you. I think he's a really good coach. I think if he does bring Daboll, that's I think going to be really good for that offense. But like you said, they need more pieces, right? I think for Cam Ward to be more fantasy relevant, they need a wide receiver. I think they need some running backs, right? They need some they need everything. Right. I know they have a great return game with Shamir Dyke, but or DK, right? They need weapons, right? They don't have anything. And I think Cam Ward is fine. I think he can be a very good quarterback, not great fantasy terms, but I think that if they get pieces around him, he could be good.
I agree. All right, an offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Drew Petzing, comes over from Arizona. This one didn't make any sense to me. I don't know what your thoughts were, but just felt weird. Like they brought in Mike McDaniel for interviews. I think they brought in like Arthur Smith. Like some of their like interviews were like all over the place. It didn't make a ton of sense. Looking at what Drew Petzing did in Arizona, his yards were 19th in NFL, 11th, 19th. His points scored for his offense, 24th, 12th, 23rd. 7th in yards per play and 3rd in yards like rush per attempt. In 2024, that was when his guys were healthy. So like I think the idea here with Petzing is he's going to bring a good run game, and he has a better just talent around him to work with in Detroit versus what he did in Arizona, and that maybe that will unlock his scheme. I'm just nervous, right? I was never overly impressed with anything Petzing did in Arizona. The offense just felt like it was fine. The run game was good with James Conner, but other than that, it was pretty bad. So I don't know, man. Are you nervous at all for Gibbs, Monty, Amon-Ra, Laporta? Laporta actually I think will be good, but
so I do think Laporta will be great. Think about how he was using Trey McBride. But I'm with you. This is kind of kind of like a why hiring for me. There's nothing that's flashy about him. There's nothing they didn't have the highest top 5 points or top 5 offense, whatever, right? And so I do think Dan Campbell runs the show there, so I think all the offensive pieces are going to be fine, right? I think we'll see more of what we saw this year, right? They kind of they regressed a little bit. I think that's kind of where they will be, right? Dan Campbell runs the show, so I'm not too worried about this kind of one way or the other with this hire.
Yeah, we'll see. This is a wait and see. I'm not going to move anyone around. Yeah.
I think there was more room to be stoked about it, thinking about a Mike McDaniel or someone like that. This is just okay. Unfortunately, they're going to either in my rankings, they're going to stay, or I'm going to have to drop them just because I know they're going to be meh.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I do think the run game will be really good, and I think Laporta will be good. I guess I'm more worried about what does this mean for JMO and Amon-Ra, because the wide receivers weren't overly great in Arizona. I know Michael Wilson had a great run of the century at the end of the year, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was a pretty big letdown. Some of that could just be on Kyler too, right? So I don't know who's to blame if it was Petzing, if it was Kyler, because Kyler's failed under multiple offensive coordinators now. So like, also the talent, just like on the offensive line in Arizona, wasn't great. Outside of Trey McBride too, it was fine. So
Yeah.
it'd be one of those things where maybe Petzing is a good OC and just had crappy talent around him in Arizona, and he thrives in Detroit. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I would rather be shown different than tell people that it's going to be great.
Yeah, like it doesn't like move the needle for me. Unlike one of the other guys we'll get to here in a minute. But Kansas City, they bring back Eric Bieniemy as the service offensive coordinator. This one I was pretty excited about. In his like 6 seasons and Kansas City as offensive coordinator, the lowest he had in terms of like offensive yards was 6th, and the lowest he was in points scored was 5th. Not only that, he had a really good run game in Kansas City during those years, which I think is something they desperately been missing. I think they're going to bring that back. I don't know if they're going to address a running back in free agency. I don't know if they're going to draft one, but like the running back in Kansas City, whoever it is next year, is one that I really am going to be interested in because Bieniemy has a really good run game scheme. He's a good play caller. He's a good offensive mind, even if Andy Reid's the one calling the plays, like he helps scheme things up, and I think they're going to focus on the run game. He was a running back coach for Chicago this last year with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai too, which I think is what he did with some of those guys was nothing to be overlooked.
Yeah, he was great with Kansas City from what you have on here, 2018 to 2022, right? And then I think what happened is he tried to get a head coaching gig, didn't work out. Then I don't think anybody
he was in Washington
him for
yeah.
Yep. And then he went to Washington and that didn't work out. Then he went to UCLA and that didn't work out. And so, obviously he had to work his way up, but I think it's nice that he landed back with Kansas City because I think that's kind of like a home for him. And I think it's going to be great. And I will want whatever running back is there. I agree.
Mm-hmm. I think the offense will kind of return to form a little bit. The last OC, this one isn't official yet, but like he hasn't signed a contract, but it's pretty like barring anything like unforeseen. So Mike McDaniel is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Chargers, which I think is huge for Justin Herbert. I think it's really nice for it feels like this might help unlock the Chargers offense. I know he had you can say what you want about McDaniel as a head coach, but as an offensive mind, he's really good. I think this is exciting for Marion Hampton, for Gadsden, Ladd McConkey, Herbert. Like, I think this is just fantastic. And one caveat to that is I do think Mike McDaniel does want to be a head coach again. And this might be a hire where he's there for 1 year and it's like a huge spike year for the Chargers. And then he bails and then we're right back in okay, well, what do the Chargers do now? So like, I love it for a redraft. I'm a little nervous to go all in on a bunch of Chargers in Dynasty, though, just because I don't know how long McDaniel will be there. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, same. It'll be interesting to see what the contract is, right? I think that'll tell a little bit more for us. But unfortunately, he'll probably sign like a 3 or 5, and it really won't matter because if he gets a head coaching position or an offer, like he can take it, right? So, I'm stoked for this offense, and I think I'm with you. Like, I'm not going to buy all the way into all right, Justin Herbert, top 3 quarterback. Like, yes, he could do that next year. But how, like you said, how long is Mike McDaniel there? We know he wants to be a head coach. We know that, the GM there in Miami just, didn't help him. He didn't get a good, staff together, et cetera. Right. And so he's going to get a second, chance like Saleh just did. It may take a couple years, 1 year, whatever. So, I would kind of monitor it and get ahead of it, right? Know that it's a possibility and possibly move those players once they start to tick up the rankings.
I think the play there is if you want now trying to acquire the Chargers, like their prices are just skyrocketed, right? So you might have to wait till some of the hype dies down a little bit. But if you do acquire any, I think selling them by the end of the year might be the play there before McDaniel leaves. All right, let's get into some of these rookies. The first guy I want to talk about, this is my boy, Jeremiah Love. He was a running back for Notre Dame. He's 6 foot, He comes in at 6 foot flat, 214 pounds. You can see his rushing numbers there. Like the last 2 years, he's gotten over 1,000 rush yards, double digit touchdowns both years. That's a 17 and an 18, which is an insane amount of touchdowns in 2 years. He has the other number there that stands out, right? He has one fumble over his 3 years at Notre Dame, which is huge. That particular fumble, I remember it happened against Boise State, and it happened because he went up the middle and he got like a weird handoff, and then a linebacker just hit him like as he was like taking the handoff, and it just popped the ball out. He recovered it, which I think says a lot too. So he didn't lose the fumble. But dude, an amazing running back. I think I'll get into some of the analytics here in a second, but just high level, what are your thoughts on Jeremiah Love?
Yeah, I think he's one of the, like, we haven't had a do it all back in a while. I feel like maybe since
Sure.
like Bijan. I think I don't think he can come in and be the same exact guy as Bijan, but I think it's the possibility is there. It depends on the landing spot and things like that. But for
Mhm.
me, he is a good in all phases, right? Lead speed, burst. I think I don't know if you said it yet, but one of the key things is that his contact balance is outstanding, right? That's
Oh,
something that
yeah.
to me, just when I'm watching games or when I watched a little bit of film, like that sticks out to me is like that is insane.
Yeah.
Right. So I personally I'm not very good with comps. So I try to stay away from that. But he reminds me a little bit of like a Reggie Bush, right? And
Mhm.
so that's not my personal comp, something I found and I actually kind of liked. But I'm stoked to see where he lands. Like I think he pencils in as like, there's only a couple backs I'd put above him in fantasy right now.
Yeah, so, like, we do analytics scores at the Fantasy Effect, right? We call them our Fez scores. Everyone gets 2 scores. They get a prospect score, which is just, like, they're purely, like, based on their stats, and then they have another like, a final Fez score that's based on, like, their draft weighted, capital. His prospect score, is in the 94th percentile since 2021, which is, like, top 3 or 4, I wanna say. Only a handful of guys or better than that. And then his draft weighted score, he's projected to be a top 15 draft pick in the NFL draft. Um, his third best out of all of them. The only two that are above him were Bijan and Ashton Genty, which are two like really good, analytic comps that you could possibly give him. I think like there was so going into this last year, there were two things really that like kind of stood out. One was he didn't pass block. Notre Dame just didn't ask him to. He took him off the field like every third down, right? In obvious passing situations. And then two, they didn't really use him in the receiving game. Both of those questions were answered. Pass blocking is not it's a work in progress, right? Like he's not the greatest at it, but like he's not so bad that you're gonna have to be like, well, shit, we can't have him on the field, right? We got to take him off. Like he's okay. Receiving, like he started to do awesome. Like his yards per route run is for his career is 1.69. That's in the 88th percentile of running back drafted since 2021, which really good. Yards after contact per attempt over 4 yards. Again, that's in the 86th percentile of running backs drafted. That's incredible. And that's directly related to his contact balance. Breakaway percent. So this metric is like the percentage of his rushing yards that came on like explosive plays, which are like 15 plus yards. Almost half of his total rushing yards of his career came on these explosive plays, which is like insane, right? But then you watch him and you just go, well, yeah, dude, he's got elite speed. He's got the explosiveness, the quickness. Like the thing that's awesome with him is like he can set up runners and not lose speed, defenders and not lose speed. Like just the way he makes jukes, like it just looks so effortless. And
Yep.
it's funny you brought up Reggie Bush because that's the when I was watching him the last couple of years, I was like, dude, this looks like Reggie Bush. Like
Yeah.
it just does. It's crazy. Um, but the contact balance, it stands out. Like there's a run against it was Navy this year where he basically got like dragged down just like the lower body strength. He kept himself off the ground and like busted off like a 70-yard run. He had a run against Penn State in the playoff game last year, where he had like three defenders try to drag him down and he just dragged him to the end zone. Like he's insanely strong for someone who's like frankly kind of lighter. Um, I don't know, dude. Someone who's that fast, like, shouldn't be that strong. Basically, is what I'm
Yep.
getting at. He has really good hands too in the receiving game. He doesn't run a bunch of like routes. Use them a lot in the screens, kind of like wheel routes. But his hands are fantastic. Um, I could gush on him forever. Holler,
Yep.
what do you got?
The best I have to add to that is he's so fun to play with in NCAA football 26.
Hell
Like
yeah, he is.
it's a cheat code. But no, yeah, I think you kind of hit it all. There are like maybe very minimal red flags, right? Like, I
Sure.
think nowadays, like if you think about it, like a three down back and things like that, is like, can he be a workhorse? I don't really think they need,
Probably
like,
not.
running backs need to be a workhorse anymore, right? They use every, running back room has two guys deep or three guys deep that get in the game, right? So I don't think that's needed. But I do think he could take over at any time. He could break away at any time. That speed is outstanding, right? And so for me, there's just not too many red flags, and like, why he is easily the 101, and I can pencil him in top 5 running back as a fantasy asset, right? Like I could see him, I'm hoping to stay away from any startups, but I could see him going in
Yeah.
depending on the scoring and stuff, but I could see him going in the beginning of the second round.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I already have him tiered with like Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs and
Yeah.
kind of that top group of running backs. I think he's just that good. One thing I wanted to call out, I didn't do a very good job of explaining it, but our Fez score, it takes into these metrics you see on the screen here, like this box of like 16 stats. It's color coded, just so I didn't overwhelm you with a bunch of numbers. The dark green basically is like he's elite in those stats. The lighter green is he's very good. The yellow is he's kind of like average for running backs, and these are measured against like other running backs that were drafted in the last like 5 or 6 years, I think. So it's a pretty healthy sample size. There's orange, which isn't on here, which is bad, and then there's red, which is like the bottom 20%, which is pretty bad. There's only one red here, which is like first downs per target. That's mainly because he wasn't overly used in the receiving
Yeah.
game. Um, Something to know with the analytics and the scores and like that's just a piece of the puzzle, right? Don't
Yep.
like take it as just like gospel of like this is like it's like the first down per target is like, oh well, it's bad, so he must not be good. It's like it's not. It just kind of gives you a picture. There's context to all of this too, right? We're working on a full 2026 draft primer, which will go into all these statistics, kind of more in depth and kind of help give you like the full picture as well as give you like the full numbers rather than just like the color codes on them. But um, the long and the short of it is really good. He's a fantastic runner.
Oh yeah.
Fantasy outlook. Okay, so we kind of talked about it. He's already kind of in like the top like 4 or 5 running backs. We mentioned player comp, kind of Reggie Bush, Darren McFadden was another one too, just kind of like a taller, like fast running back
Yep.
of guys that could just be really good. As far as landing spots go, I think there's a bunch of spots. Like I think he's going to go in the top like half of the draft. There's really not like is he's going to be well, and he is currently my rookie 101.
Yep.
And I think in all formats he should probably be the first overall pick. Is there a landing spot that he could go to that would change your mind on that?
No. I mean, even if he were to land on, let's say, the Rams or the Ravens, who both have running backs, like those are probably two of the worst possible spots. Like,
Yeah,
one, I don't think either of those teams would do that, and two, he's good enough that he'd take over the
I think so too. Yeah.
the running back room, right? And so, um, I think he's landing spot proof, right? I mean, there is plenty of upside to Fernando Mendoza, and that would be my only like thinking of, okay, let me go just grab this
Mhm.
quarterback because I know the quarterback can rise in value, right? Um, that's my only thinking, but I personally just don't have enough, you know, belief that Felipe or Fernando Mendoza, excuse me, is not like a fantasy football game changer.
No, I think Mendoza's going to be on the Cam Ward path.
Yeah.
He's going to be pretty good. Um, but I don't think he's gonna be like he's not like a Caleb Williams or like a Jaden
Yep.
Daniels who was like, well, I gotta take that guy, like, because he's like a generational talent. I think he's a very good player.
Yep.
I just don't think I think he's gonna be a better player than he's gonna be a fantasy asset, but I do think he's gonna be fine. Um, but Jeremiah Love, I think, has a chance to be like special and
Yeah.
and a game changer.
Yep.
Some of my favorite landing spots, I think the Commanders at 7 makes a lot of sense. Pairing him with Jaden Daniels, I think, would be like a really scary backfield for defenses to have to look at. The Saints, they could use an upgrade from Alvin Kamara, who's getting a lot older. I think Jeremiah Love, it's actually kind of funny because I've seen some comparisons to Jeremiah Love as saying like, oh, he's basically Alvin Kamara, which I don't know if I fully agree with that, but yeah, he's pretty good. Kansas City at 9. We just talked about Eric Bieniemy and wanted to establish a run game. That would be a really good spot for him.
Yeah.
I think Dallas, if they don't bring back Javonte Williams, they have 2 picks in the top 20. That makes
Yeah.
a ton of sense. But
I don't
go ahead.
see him getting past 12, really. Like, I
Yeah,
know it's possible if he does, he'll probably end up on the Jets and we'll be bummed a little bit. But I still think, if you think about
yeah,
Brees Hall, the first year was great. I think
yeah.
Jeremiah Love would kind of be Aaron Glenn's kind of like his guy, right? So he's there.
Could
They
be
have a
his
need
Jahmyr
for him,
Gibbs.
right? So, I still think that's a good scenario. I just don't see him getting past the Jets there. Like I really think he probably won't get past the Chiefs at 9, although I know the Chiefs have a lot of other needs.
Yeah.
And they're a very smart organization. So, but yeah, it just makes too much sense for Kansas City, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that 7, 8, 9 with Washington, New Orleans, and Kansas City kind of makes all the sense in the world for him to go
Yeah.
in that range. But also, someone could like the Vikings at 18 if they were to try to trade up, or if he were to slide down to him, I think they would jump all over that. They could use
Yep.
a running game to help alleviate some of the pressure on JJ McCarthy or whoever they have starting at quarterback next year. But
Yep.
any last parting thoughts on Jeremiah Love before we move on to
No,
the next
just
guy?
I know we hit on it, but I don't think we need to overthink this. Easily 101, right? I mean, I get
He's
the
so good,
understand,
dude.
I get the quarterback that could rise up in value, but you're not going to go wrong with just
It's
taking the best player.
it's one of those where it's like the analytics make sense, the film looks good, the draft capital is going to be good. Like, don't overthink it. He's a
Yep.
stud. You're good to go. All right, Carnell Tate. Now his numbers. Okay, so let's just get into Carnell Tate here. So he's 6'3", 195. He's a wide receiver from Ohio State. He's going to be the next Ohio State wide receiver that gets drafted in the first round. Most of them have been pretty good, whether it's like Olave, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like I'm missing one obvious one. Oh, Emeka Ibuka last year.
That's why there's 2 of us.
Thank you. So the thing with him is that like his numbers, he started off basically kind of slower, and then he kind of worked his way up because there was a lot of guys in the room, and this is pretty common for Ohio State receivers. Some of their analytics don't always look the best because the analytics look at their full career, and a lot of the times it's like they don't get a lot of opportunities when they're younger, and they kind of break out later. And unless you're like Jeremiah Smith, but that's a different caliber of player. Carnell Tate this last year, 875 yards, 9 touchdowns. His yards per reception is pretty awesome. It's been over 14 every single year he's played. I can already hear the analytics people hating on Carnell Tate going, well, he never went over 1,000 yards as a receiver. And that's valid. It's true. And they're going to point to all the people that are like, oh, well, you know who else did it was Matthew Golden, and he sucked. And it's like, you can make the case over and over again on Carnell Tate about like, oh, he didn't hit X metric. I think he's good. It's just he played with Jeremiah Smith, dude. Like, and they had a really good run game. Like, what are you going to do? I don't know. Holler, what are your thoughts on Carnell Tate?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Like, I think he's going to be a very good wide receiver, right? Like, I think a lot of us we kind of overlooked Emeka Ibuka. Same thing, same type of thing happened last year, right? Uh, Jeremiah Smith is a once in a lifetime, generational player that is going to take away from other really good players, no matter where he is, right? And so like just that jump up in touchdowns really kind of shows me that, okay, he is now that top wide receiver 2 in that group there.
Mhm.
Some games can be wide receiver 1, right? So I feel like we know what we're getting with these Ohio State wide receivers. They've
Yeah.
all been very good, right? Different varyings of, but like obviously now JSN top 3 wide receiver, right? Garrett Wilson kind of going the other way, but still very good wide receiver. So for me, like I don't think I'm going to overthink, because I missed out on a lot of Ibuka, because
Same.
it's like I overthought about, like, no, if he was good, he would have put up more numbers and things like that. But like, no, 9 touchdowns is really good, right? There's a lot of good players on these top end colleges, right? And so there's only one football. So to me, like kind of what we said with Jeremiah Love, don't overthink it. He's going to be a top 4, top 5 pick in our rookie
Yeah.
drafts, right? And so just
I,
for me, I think it really him kind of depends a lot with a ton of wide receivers, but depends on where he lands.
yeah, one spot I've seen him mocked a lot is the Giants, which I think I like that spot quite a bit. Like you can play outside Malik Neighbors, so he doesn't have to be like the the end all be all guy in an offense. He can kind of be the secondary guy, which I think is probably his best like asset. Um, we'll see. I do think he's going to be the first wide receiver drafted off the board in the NFL draft. I think scouts are going to like kind of the big frame that he has and the height. He can kind of do a lot compared to some of the other guys that have maybe some limitations. Some of the things that stand out in his analytic profile for the better his contested catch rate. So in 2025, he brought down 12 of 14 contested targets. So like contested targets are generally like 50-50 balls. Um, so his 50-50 balls are more like, 80-20 balls, right? Because he's just so good at bringing them down. Part of that is because he has outstanding body control. He has incredible hands. He was credited with 5 total drops in college, which is like insane given the amount of targets and balls thrown his way. Only dropping 5 of them is pretty awesome. His PFF grades are was 89 in 2025, which was like top like 20 in the I forgot the number. I had it written down somewhere and I lost my spot. But basically
Top
it was
50 for, I think it
yeah,
was.
it was insane. He was yards per route run over 3 in 2025. His career was 2.27, was anything over 2 is really good. That's top 60 percentile for drafted wide receivers over the last 6 years. A yards per route run over 3 is fantastic.
Yep.
That's like incredible efficiency with the targets he did get. Part of it is because he caught the ball downfield a lot. He kind of has that like I want to call him like George Pickens, where he just kind of has that body control. We can just make those like crazy catches on the sideline, but like he does have that in him. He's a really good route runner. As far as the good things, but Holler, what do you got on
Yeah.
Carnell Tate too?
No, you hit all the good stuff. I guess I only have like one or two, not even call them concerns really, because he is really a complete wide receiver, right? But he doesn't really
Mhm.
have that like top end speed, right? Like
Sure.
he's not a burner, right? And so and then there's no yak to him, right? He's gonna get you your first down and then get
Yeah.
tackled, which is not a bad thing, right? It's just that's the type of wide receiver he is, right? And so he doesn't have the only thing that I think is really lacking is that top end speed, which
Mhm.
results usually into like a big play, right? Think of like JMO. We're not going to see that out of
Mhm.
Carnell Tate, but that's not what that type of wide receiver he is, right? He's going to be a good, big body frame guy that's going to get you that first down that you need 12, 13 yards.
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, the yak thing, that's just not his game, right? Like
Yeah.
and the only other concern is like he's never really been like a high target earner. His 19.7 like targets per route run. That's so like a 19% of his routes run, basically he earns a target. That's in the bottom 20% of the wide receivers drafted since 2021, which is bad. We kind of covered that a little bit. Like
Yeah.
he played with Jeremiah Smith, he played with Emeka Egbuka. Some of that, like it's you would like that number to be a lot higher in a perfect
Yeah.
world. It's
But
not like
outside
a
of
you can't like he can't overcome it, right? It's not like totally damning where it's like, oh well, he sucks basically.
Yeah. And I think the only thing to think about there is like if you were to land on a spot that already has a clear cut wide receiver one that is like a ball hog, right? There's not too many anymore, right? So like there are plenty of spots that I think he could be really, really good. There are only a couple spots that I can, think of that would be kind of bad, right? So but yeah, I think kind of the same teams we were thinking about, like Commanders is really good. Giants, we already said, would be really good. So for me, he is, no, like I kind of have, Jeremiah Love on his own, and then I've got the next four players all kind of, or three players all kind of together, right? And so I would pick any of the next three players really.
Yeah, I think for me, so I have him in my 102 to 106 tier. I included the tight end and Mendoza in that group along with
Yeah.
three wide receivers, but like I think where they go in that range is going to probably depend on landing spot to some extent, right? Like, let's say Cardinal Tate goes to like the Jets or the Browns at 2 or 6, like then I might, say like let's take Mekhi Lemon over him if he goes to a better spot, right? But like right now, like he's already my wide receiver. He's in my wide receiver like 13 to like 20 tier. It's kind of a bigger tier right now. And I think that's what he's going to be. I think he's going to be like a low end wide receiver too, kind of right off the bat. I kind of feel like he might end up being kind of like a T Higgins type where it's like, he's really good, but he's not like the guy. Maybe he has games where he takes over. But like, he's not like the focal point of an offense, but he's still like a fantastic player. The player comp I had for him was Michael Thomas. So he could be Slant Boy 2.0. And we'll get
I love it. Yeah, because if you think about Michael Thomas, like he wasn't this guy that's going to go make this humongous play, but he was going to get you 12 yards when you need it. He's going to get open and he's going to get you that. And that's Carnell Tate.
Yeah, exactly. Good route runner, solid, reliable hands. Like you said, not the long speed, not the yak. And that was kind of the same thing with Michael Thomas, right? It's just like, but he moved the chains and he was good for your offense. But any parting thoughts before we move on to our last guy here?
No, don't overthink it. He's great. Another Ohio State wide receiver. That's all you need to know.
Exactly. If you're gonna helmet scout, Ohio State wide receivers might be the one you can get away with it. All right, our last guy tonight, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC, 5'11", 195 pounds. He's primarily a slot receiver. His slot usage at USC was 75.6% of his collegiate snaps were in the slot. That said, I think he could play outside. I think he's better suited to be a slot receiver, but I do think he can do it. He's a guy that he got a lot better year after year. Like you can see kind of on the stat sheet there, as a freshman, he barely touched the ball. 2024, he had a massive breakout. 52 receptions, 764 yards. And then over 100 targets this past year. He went over 1,100 yards. And then the jump from 3 touchdowns to 11 touchdowns is fantastic. And this is the guy that I think the analytic people are going to just like drool over. He's a fantastic player. All of his metrics are good. Like you can just see it's all green basically, other than air yards. And some of that's just because he played in the slot and he had a lower like ADOT, but like his yards per reception, fantastic. Yards per route run, great. First downs per route run, fantastic. All these are like in the top, like 15 percentile of metrics. Receptions per route run, his yak per reception, fantastic. Before I steal all the good stuff, Holler, why don't you tell me about Mekhi? He's your highest ranked receiver, right?
Yep, absolutely. By far, not by far, because I still have like him and Tate kind of really close together. I've got some question marks with Tyson that we'll get into, Jordan Tyson, our next show. But man, the jump up this year with Mekhi Lemon was insane, right? The last couple of years I've been dabbling with Debbie, then I got into a little bit of Campus to Canton a little bit last year, and so started to know a little about Mekhi Lemon. And then man, this year he exploded on the scene a little bit. Well, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 games of over 100 yards, 4 of them over 150 yards, and one of them I got to see in person. It was sweet. Friday night against Northwestern. 11 receptions, and he had a huge like 50, I think it was like 55-yard touchdown. Just top end speed, like shifty, like he does like everything great, right? My only concern is that he cannot play outside very well. I think, like you said, he could do it, but those are not his strengths, right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, like elite yak, elite, like when I think about it, like if he gets open and he has a clear cut to the end zone, he's going to get it, right? And that's like the main thing for me in fantasy with him, right? So, but again, he does have the red flags of not being able to play outside. Can he be a wide receiver one? I think there's still kind of question marks there,
Yeah.
and I think he could easily be that. But how does jumping up from 52 receptions to 79? How does his body react and things like that?
Yeah, I think he can, right? And like we've seen kind of like wide receiver ones be slot guys. I think of like Amon-Ra St. Brown,
Yep.
who's like a dominant slot. We see like CeeDee Lamb, who it's a little different because he does play outside some, but he's better in the slot. And I think Mekhi Lemon can kind of do a lot of that. Like one thing I did want to call out is yards per route run. He had 2 seasons of over 3 yards per route run, which is insane. I mentioned earlier we like to see over 2. He had 2 seasons over 3. Um, Also, for some of you sickos out there that play in like kick return yard leagues,
Yep.
he does return kicks and punts too. So like if that like if him and Cardinal Tate, all things being equal, if you play in a return yard league, like that should be the tiebreaker because that's going to get you some extra points. I think that's going to help get him on the field even faster.
Yeah. My only
Yeah.
worry with that
Oh,
is
go
like
ahead.
he's too good of a wide receiver to for them to put him back there. But there's a
I
lot
mean,
like the
yeah, that's fair.
return game is very different, right? Especially they can throw him back on the kickoff, right? Maybe versus
Hmm.
punt return. So it's still that option, right? And so I'm with you there with like if there is any return yards, definitely that's the tiebreaker for you.
Yeah, and so in terms of, rookie draft position, he's kind of in that 102 to 106 tier for me as well. He's kind of in that same tier, like the wide receiver 13 to 20 for me. Um, I, I'm curious, what are your thoughts that like for his fantasy upside, just like year one? Because and some of that might depend on the landing spot, but like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there on like what can he bring you as a rookie in terms of like to
Yeah.
your fantasy roster?
I think there is, the upside to be a solid wide receiver too. I think, but we have to temper our expectations, right? I think more of like a
Mhm.
wide receiver 3. He's the type of guy that, in my opinion, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to, level up to that wide receiver 1 elite guy, right? Think about Amon Ra.
Mhm.
Like he didn't, you know, jump onto the scene. I know he was different with him being like a fourth or fifth round draft pick versus a first round
Mhm.
draft pick, right? So I know we want that early production on our first round draft picks, but for me with Mekhi Lemon, like it was a huge jump up from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3, right? So I think he's still developing into the wide receiver we're going to see.
Mhm.
So I think there is the upside of being a wide receiver 2, but I think at the all said and done, I think he'll be a very solid wide receiver 3. But in terms of like dynasty rankings, I have him pretty firmly in that like 18 to 24 range. Unfortunately, I
Sure.
haven't done any updated my rankings in a while. But that's a project for before we get closer to this summer.
Yeah, there's time still. As far as draft capital, I think, Cardinal Tate is probably like more locked and loaded as like a top
Yeah.
like 5 to 10 guy. I think I think Makai Lemon is more like in that probably like 11 to 20 range. Maybe he sneaks into the top 10 if like maybe the Saints get a little itchy to help a receiver with Chris Olave there. I think the Dolphins make a lot of sense. Get their new quarterback if they get Malik Willis, get him a little extra help besides Jalen Waddle. I think the Rams,
Yep.
an absolute demon, dude, to pair with
Yeah. I
Puka
can't.
Nakua and Devontae
Yeah.
Adams. Like, my God, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So that would be insane, but I think it would be a really good spot because that's the type of team that like Mekhi Lemon needs to go to for him to turn into an Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? If he lands
Sure.
on, I know I'm a fan of the Rams, right? But if you just think about their drafting and the players and things like that, and then also Devontae Adams is going to be there, Puka's there, like there's guys there that are going to lead him in the right direction, right? And so now think about it on the flip side, like with the Dolphins, like I get new coaching staff, whatever, but like I don't know, that's like polar opposites for me. Sorry, Nick.
No, for sure. The Panthers are another spot that I think makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. Like they have T Mac, they have Jalen Coker, like two big bodies on the outside. They need
Yep.
someone to kind of take away, to kind of get the middle of the field to give Bryce Young another option. I think Mekhi Lim is the perfect guy that could kind of be zone. He can kind of sit down the spots, maybe help if Bryce can see him.
Love
I
that.
think the Steelers make a lot of sense too to partner with DK Metcalf. They're probably going to need to have a new quarterback. Mekhi Lemon could be a nice spot there.
I don't know why, but that 21 Steelers just screams Ty Simpson to me. It's disgusting,
It
but that's just,
does.
I don't know why. It just
It
does.
does. Honestly, I could see that too. We'll
It's
see.
disgusting. Like I
Depends
think
on
it
who
would
they hire as
obviously,
their head
yeah.
coach. I think, but yeah. Also, if
Yeah,
he
to
makes
me,
it that far, the Bills would make sense
yep.
for Mekhi Lemon, but I don't think he's gonna make. I don't think he's gonna fall
Yeah.
that far personally.
That would be a slam dunk. Although wide receivers haven't really done very well there. So I know Diggs was fine, but
They haven't, but they haven't drafted the right ones.
yeah.
Was be my argument there. They've drafted some crappy receivers.
But yeah, no, but I think like a lot of these options, like there's not really too many that I really would be like bummer. And then there's the same, teams that are like, oh, I don't really want a fantasy player on that one. Dolphins, Jets, Saints, like
The
I
Jets would be a bummer, dude.
yeah.
Until we find out what they're doing at quarterback.
Yep.
But like him and Garrett Wilson, like that's a pretty good receiving
Yeah.
core. But who's throwing on the ball, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's gonna be
Exactly.
Brady Cook, like God help us, it's like I don't want anything to do with it. So
Yep.
um,
I'm
I don't
assuming
know.
they'll get like a defensive guy, have another boring year, and slowly bring
Yeah,
Garrett Wilson back, and then they'll get their quarterback in
probably.
27.
Probably, man. The Jets are just where good players go to die,
Yep.
unfortunately. Um, Luckily, Brees Hall gets out. He's gonna be a free agent. But trying to stay more on topic, Mekhi Lemon, player comps. This is a little bit lazy, but like Amon-Ra St. Brown, because it's a slot player from USC. Maybe that's lazy of me. But also I think Josh Downs is a similar style of player. A really good kind of like slot guy who's um, athletic, can do a lot of stuff from the slot, probably plays a little bit bigger than his body actually is. But I
Yep.
don't know, man. I think
Agreed.
so. You have Mekhi Lemon at 2 and then Tate at 3 and Jeremiah Love 1. Is that right?
Yeah. So today,
There.
right? It could change. Subject to change, right? I can move Tate above. I just think there is more upside to Mekhi Lemon, but he has to land on the right team, and needs
Yeah.
to continue to refine his game, right? If he lands on the Jets, he lands on a team that we know good players die. Like Mekhi Lemon, unfortunately, I'm not going to touch, right? But there is a lot of upside there, and he can be extremely, extremely valuable in fantasy. But that he still needs to reach to that height.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, all the receivers really. It really is going to depend on the landing spot, the offensive coordinators, the quarterbacks throwing the ball, right? And some of
Yep.
that's just like you just gotta wait and see. But I like Mekhi Lemon a lot. He's my. I have loved Tate Lemon right now, but like you said, subject to
Yeah.
change. But so that's what we got tonight. We got the kind of our top 3 prospects. We're going to kind of continue doing these prospect previews as we get going. We'll kind of continue on down our rankings a little bit. Be sure to join our Discord. It's free. We'll have a link down in the description. If you like what we do, if you want to see the full analytic profiles of these guys and all of our Fez scores, that's available via our Patreon. It's $5 a month.
You'll be surprised at how good Javonte Williams with the Fed score, man. He's outstanding.
You would be surprised at Javonte Williams. A little spoiler there. He was fantastic. What was I going to say? Like the video. Join our Discord. Join the Patreon. It mean a lot if you help us out there. It really means a ton to us to support us. But thank you all for watching. We hope you will catch you on the next one, and we will keep doing this all off season. So stick with us. And that being said, peace out, everybody.
Peace.